Hey guys, this is Markuis for CardRunners.com, and today I'm going to be making a quickie video that talks about playing against loose aggressive players heads up. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do when you're playing against a loose aggressive player, or against any type of player really, is to find out what they're doing and try as much as possible to classify them into some type of player. You don't want to go too crazy in categorizing someone and just applying some blanket strategy to someone because you've decided they're aggressive or because you've decided they're a bad leg or anything like that. But I think it does help a little bit, and it certainly helps in the context of a quickie video to talk about some adjustments that you can make against different categories of legs. So here are 4 common categories that I've run into. I'm sure there are more. Please let me know if you think there are some other ones that should be included in this list. But here are 4 pretty common ones. So the first one is pretty easy to play against, and that's just going to be a bad leg. And that's someone who's going to overplay a lot of their made hands. They're not going to go anywhere a second pair, or if they have top pair, they're automatically going to get their stack in, etc. And they're going to bluff too wide against your range when it looks pretty strong, or when they don't represent much, or when it's a board that's likely to have hit you pretty hard, etc. So those types of legs aren't going to be too difficult to play against. Another common type is what you could call an early street leg, and that's someone who 3-bets really wide and then c-bets really wide but slows down. This is a somewhat common tendency. It's a pretty easy tendency to play. You just 3-bet really wide, c-bet, and then you don't have to think too much, and you just check down on a lot of various turn and river runouts. I find that most of these players, they tend to adjust after a certain point to and start double barreling you pretty wide. It's rare that for the whole length of a match, someone's going to be c-betting and then slowing down on a ton of turn cards because there are just so many good turn cards to barrel in a lot of spots. And if they find out that you're floating them or that you're calling flops really late, it's rare that someone won't adjust. But at least early on, there are certainly some players who tend to just 3-bet and c-bet, but then slow down. Another common type is the ambitious leg, and that's someone who, whenever you show weakness, they try and throw a ton of money into the pot and try and blow you off your hand. And they're kind of fun to play against, although you can get into some really sticky spots on the river. But basically, when you take weak lines against them, they're not afraid to overbet huge or just shove a ton of money in. If they are the type of player who's not value betting thinly, then you have a very profitable situation to call down. I guess this applies to all legs. There are certainly some legs that just don't value bet thin enough given how wide they're betting, which means that their ranges are going to be pretty bluff heavy. And if that's the case in any spot, you just want to be calling down pretty wide. So an ambitious leg, for instance, if you find out that they're c-betting a normal size with some of their value hands, or they're checking back some value hands that seem like obvious value bets, then it might be a good spot to look up their big bets on the river pretty wide. And then the last one is just a good leg who isn't obviously leaking in any area. Good legs come in many shapes and sizes, but there isn't some sort of obvious adjustment that you have to do to print money against them. And they're not going to be they'll be fun to play, but maybe they won't be the most profitable spots. So now let's talk about what kind of adjustments. Well, actually, first let's talk about how you go about finding out what kind of leg you're playing. And this applies to all types of players, but let's just talk about this in the context of legs. The main thing you want to do, I think, early on is try and get to showdown, because it's very easy to over adjust to some percentages, some stats based on small sample sizes. So for instance, someone 3-bets you the first 5 times during the big blind in a heads up match. It's very easy to just jump to the assumption that this guy's or girl is 3-betting you really wide, and to basically change your game plan up accordingly. But it's really not that difficult for them to just have picked up 5 legitimate 3-betting hands. Or for instance, let's say you've called 2 or 3 3-bets, and both times you called flop and they barreled turn really large. It's easy to assume, oh, this guy's just going crazy and c-betting and double barreling really wide all over the place. But again, it's not that difficult to make 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hands in a row. So it's dangerous to just jump to assumptions based on non-showdown hands or stats based on small sample sizes.